Today we will be discussing other aspects of the chapter The Last Leaf. The story is ironic because of the fact that Mr. Behrman dies from pneumonia. This is ironic because that is exactly what he is trying to save Johnsy from. She is dying of pneumonia, and because she does not believe that she will be able to live once that last leaf falls. So, Behrman goes and paints a leaf on the wall. It convinces her to live, but painting it kills him because he went out in such bad weather to do it. So, the topic sentence would be something like, the last leaf is ironic because Mr. Behrman dies of pneumonia because he was trying to prevent that same thing from happening to Johnsy. Coming to the theme of the chapter, the author has highlighted some themes in the story That Last Leaf. First is hope and health. Confined to her bed in the Greenwich Village apartment, Johnsy becomes preoccupied with a leaf on a vine outside her window. This leaf comes to symbolize her will to live. When the last leaf falls from the vine, she tells you she will die. Their neighbor, Mr. Behrman, scoffs at the idea. Is there people in the world meet their foolishness to die because leaves they drop off from a confounded vine? I have not heard of such a thing. Nevertheless, by painting the illusion of a last leaf on the wall outside Johnsy's window, he gives her hope again, a gift which saves Johnsy's life by reminding her that she still has a future. The illusion of a leaf is able to keep Johnsy alive because the last leaf conflates physical and psychological illness. Though the doctor diagnoses Johnsy with pneumonia, he asserts that her real problem is that she has lost the desire to live. He tells you that half of his medical work is useless if the patient herself doesn't want to get better, and Johnsy seems to no longer hope to regain her health or imagine a future for herself. Because of this, he urges you to give Johnsy hope by asking her about new winter clothes, since if she were interested in the future, her chances would be better. Johnsy, though, insists that she is finished living and wants to go sailing down like one of those poor tired leaves, which shows the extent of her psychological ailment. When Johnsy sees that the last leaf has seemingly survived the storm against all odds, however, she regains her sense of hopefulness about the future. I have been a bad girl, Sudie, Johnsy says. Something has made that last leaf stay there to show me how wicked I was. It is a sin to want to die. Having come to the conclusion that she was wrong to lose hope, Johnsy sits up and begins to eat again, and the doctor pronounces her on the mend. Johnsy's recovery is inextricable from her rediscovery of her hope for her future. It's not winter clothes that excite her, as the doctor suggested, but the prospect of painting again. She tells you that she would like to achieve her long-held dream of visiting Italy to paint the Bay of Naples. Just as thoughts of her future paintings give Johnsy the hope to overcome her sickness, Behrman finds courage and hope for himself and his neighbors in the art he will someday create. Someday I will paint my masterpiece, he says, and we shall go away. God, yes, it's Behrman's masterpiece, the illusionistic painting of the last leaf outside Johnsy's window, that gives Johnsy hope. In a way, when Behrman uses his art to transfer his own hope to Johnsy. Once Behrman has painted his masterpiece, thereby achieving his life's work, he himself comes to pneumonia. This suggests that he, unlike Johnsy, no longer believes his best work is in front of him. Since he has just painted his masterpiece, which reminded Johnsy of her desire to paint her own masterpiece, he no longer has the will to live. O. Henry therefore suggests that physical health is strongly related to hope for the future, for the artist in The Last Leaf. Their hope for the future centers on the fulfilling their life's purpose, painting a masterpiece. As the doctor suggests, though hope can come from many sources, all that matters for restoring physical health is that a person looks forward to something. The second theme is gender and sexuality. As young female artists in early 20th century New York, Sue and Johnsy are in an unusual position. Their behavior challenges accepted notions of women's roles and responsibilities in the period, rather than marrying and devoting their energies to the domestic sphere. They have chosen to move to New York and lead independent but financially precarious lives in pursuit of their art. After meeting at a restaurant and discovering their many shared interests, Sue and Johnsy decide to move in together. Confronted with the disapproval of the wider society, the two women find solace in their friendship. The story's few men dismiss and belittle Sue and Johnsy. For example, the doctor who diagnoses Johnsy's pneumonia asserts that the art is not anything worth thinking about for a woman. When he asks if anything is bothering Johnsy, Sue replies that she wanted to paint the Bay of Naples one day. The doctor doesn't believe that this unfulfilled aspiration could be the cause of Johnsy's depression. Paint Bosch, he replies, and asks if she is upset over a man. Sue, by contrast, contradicts the doctor's view that romantic troubles could be the only thing worth thinking about for Johnsy. Is a man worth? She begins, but cuts herself off, seeming to imply that a man wouldn't warrant such a depression. Even other artists who know Sue and Johnsy and seem to respect their work can be dismissive of them based on gender. Their neighbor, Mr. Behrman, expresses some of the prevailing views of the time when he shouts, "You are just like a woman," at Sue, accusing her of irrationality and jumping to conclusions. Some critics have advanced the view that Sue and Johnsy are romantically involved. At the very least, they clearly share a close intimacy that exists outside the more conventional roles for women in the period. They are unmarried, live together, and share a home life that does not involve men or caring for children. Sue seems very sure that Johnsy is not involved in a heterosexual relationship. There is nothing of that kind, she tells the doctor. The two women call each other by various endearments, including "Dear Sudie" and "Dear Johnsy." Sue is highly loyal to Johnsy, cooking and caring for her and telling her, "I would rather be here by you." When Johnsy asks her to leave, Sue is in despair at the prospect of Johnsy's death. "Think of me if you won't think of yourself," she says. "What would I do?" O. Henry never conclusively confirms or denies the nature of their relationship. But it's clear that the two women are very close and that they are able to support each other's ambitions and passions when others dismiss them. The Last Leaf thus depicts two women who lead unconventional lives. Whether or not Johnsy and Sue are romantically involved, their decision to build a life together challenges prevailing gender norms, particularly the expectation that early 20th century women should devote all their time and efforts to their husband and children. By devoting themselves to each other and to art instead, Johnsy and Sue form a new alternative model of a family and suggest that women's interests and abilities are far more varied than most men of the era could understand.